More candy treats for everybody here. Another third place, and we also have the Norwegian results for you guys. So let's dig on into what's going on. Shall you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more decks. So the first list we're going to be covering here was Femboy Yu-Gi-Oh's third place list from Twitter. Lund linked it to me and was like, hey, here you go, Rabbit. Here's the other Madolche list. I was like, I can't wait to talk about more candy treats, all right? Like, this is actually exciting here. Actually seeing D-Shifter in here, actually seeing D-Shifter over Ash Blossom as a high-impact hand trap is actually really nice. I actually really like that. Understandably, like, I feel like you're gonna miss the Ash Blossom at certain points in this deck, but I feel like that's not a problem. You know what I mean? So, seeing here, this is going to be our high impact hand trap. Then, of course, we have triple copies of Mr. Herald of Orange Light. This card is good. And then, of course, we get into the little tasty treats. We have one Angeli, two copies of the Hoot Hoot, triple copies of Madolche Magdalene, two copies of Messengelato, triple copies of Pudding Saucier, and one copy of Pudding Cess. That's pretty basic stuff there. Then we have spells. We have triple copies of Book of Moon. Now, as a card that can force a immediate negate, blowing off a Boral load, or a Boral End Dragon, this is pretty good. Like, I'll take that. Also, the only thing is, like, yeah, this doesn't immediately out a Apollosa or something like that, but on the off, or on the defense as well, like when you set up your going first board here, Book of Moon does give you that reactive hand trap, and much like we saw in the earlier build from earlier in the day, you know, the more reactive options you have, it's not so bad. I also see down here that, of course, we do have access to those strikes, so we are expanding our options for those ending boards. We have one Call by the Grave, one Harpy's Feather Duster, one Chateau, triple copies of Salon, one copy of Ticket, two copies of Extrav with triple Prosperity. This feels a little bit bulky, but I can understand why. There will be games where you probably see both of these, but sometimes you'll just have to make the decision on which one of these is going to be the more impactful one for you to generate the most advantage. And then, of course, we have two copies of Promenade, triple copies of Psalms D. Reich, and then we have triple Sistart, one copy of Linkriba, one Asa, triple copies of Glass Filet, triple copies of Tiramisu, triple copies of Shock Lala Mode, and one copy of My Dear Friend Zeus. You guys remember when people said that Zeus wasn't good in Madolche, and then all of a sudden we see Madolche coming back and playing Zeus? It's almost like this is good. I remember my entire comment section roasting my friend for doing that. I remember Zeus is bad in this deck. Evidently not. We have triple copies of Phantasme, two copies of Nibiru, triple copies of Cosmic Cyclone, triple copies of Dark Ruler No More, triple copies of Lightning Storm, and one copy of Red Reboot here, wrapping up the third place list. I believe this was from France. I believe it was 228 players, so the numbers did add up for that. So that is very nice. Two freaking Madolche decks this weekend, by the way. Think about that, alright? So impressive. Now, I need to talk about I believe this was Norwegian event. There were 44 players. And Herman, I reached out to him and was like, hey, like, what happened at your extravaganza? Like, what was the good stuff? The list ended up for this particular event. We're actually available on Neuron. So if you guys ever just kind of want to look for information, go on Neuron and search for Extravaganza. You can find bits and pieces of that. There was a lot of info on there for the previous Extravaganza, which was actually kind of nice. All right. Now, this is first place. This was Alexander Tonder's list. And I mean, for a 44-man event, I guess you can argue, like, oh, it doesn't count. Ugh, irrelevant. Whatever, man. Herman's a good player. Like, he's playing pure Zoo. We'll talk about his list here in a second, but, like, people need to chill on, like, numbers and representation. It's the interesting ideas that count. So, we have triple copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, one copy of Pinkertops, triple copies of Gamma, triple copies of Nyan, triple copies of Lily, triple copies of Lulu, one copy of Toto, triple copies of Lalo. Then we have triple copies of Gigi, 1 copy of Driver, 1 copy Called by the Grave, 2 copies of Foolish Bro Goods, triple copies of your favorite Pot of Desires, triple copies of Kowloon, triple copies of Qing Long, triple copies of Chuchi, and 1 copy of the Zua Wu. Down here in the extra deck, we have Enter Blafnir, 1 copy of the Bamboozling Gossip, 1 Utopia Beyond, 1 M7, 2 copies of Shen Shen. It's actually interesting. I like this increase number. We have 1 copy of Geo Geo, 1 copy of Rimley and Dragomech. Here's the Tzolk'in. 1 Stardust Charge, 1 Muddy Mud, 1 Crystal Wing, 1 Coral Dragon, 1 Cloud Castle, and the 1 copy of Kaliga. Then we have triple copies of Lancia, triple copies of Gamma Seal, triple copies of Ghost Belt and the Haunted Mansion, triple Dark Rule No More, and triple copies of Twin Twisters, wrapping up another take on VW. And like I said, man, ending on like Kaliga Crystal Wing. Like, you guys remember when we were trying to end on Dragoon? Yeah, I remember. Now, I definitely think that this is just probably the best variant here. So, I'm glad to see that Virtual World has basically solidified itself for just being Kaliga Crystal Wing past the deck with a Chuchi. It's pretty good, all things considered. Next up, we have Herman Hansen's list. And I'm going to say this, there are very few changes between this and third place here. So we have triple copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. We're playing 2 freaking copies of Bunny Blast, actually. This caught me off guard. I'm actually happy to see the Bunny Blast seeing play. We have 2 copies of Ram Ram, 1 Rap here, triple copies of Thoroughblade, and triple copies of Whiptail. Then we have 2 copies of Book of Moon, 1 copy Called by the Grave, triple copies of Cosmic Cyclone, triple copies of everybody's favorite Tenki, 1 Monster Reborn, triple copies of Pot of Desires, 1 Zoodiac Barrage, 1 Impure Order, triple copies of Infinite Permanence, 1 Macrocosmo, triple copies of Solemn Judgment, triple copies of Solemn Steel Reich, and 1 copy of Zoodiac Gumbo. Then we have 1 Megaclops, 2 copies of Tiger Mortar, 2 copies of Hammer Bong, 1 Trident, triple Chalkanine, 2 copies of Borbo. Interesting enough, we're playing 2 copies of Vespinato. And then we have 2 copies of Zeus, 2 copies of D-Shifter, 2 copies of Nibiru, 2 copies of Retaliating Sea, triple copies of Skullmeister, triple copies of Dark Ruler No More, 1 Feather Duster, and 2 copies of Lightning Storm, wrapping up Herman's list. And just a quick little shift here. You're going to see not a lot of stuff change here. Ta-da! The real options of change here are like the inclusion of the third Bespin, or the second Borbo. You can see the hand traps slightly shifted here, but the main decks are virtually the exact same for Herman and Nikolai's list. So it's just, it really comes down to like preference on what you want in terms of hand traps. The Vespinato versus the Borbo as well are really, like I said, the only big changes besides like, you pick your side deck, alright? Like, exploring the other option for an additional D-Shifter definitely seems like it was an okay option for this event. And the last list that I have for you guys here from the Norway event is Ahmed Alaj list for Invoked. So we have triple copies of the Alistair the Invoker. We have triple copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, 2 copies of Ecclesia, 1 copy of Fleur-de-Lis, 2 copies of Droll and Lockbird, 1 copy of Ariel, 2 copies of Windy, 1 copy of Shadal Beast, 1 Dragon with 1 Hedgehog, and then 2 Squamatas. And then we have 1 copy Called by the Grave, 1 El Shadal Fusion, 2 copies of Invocation, triple copies of Magical Meltdown, triple copies of Nadir's Servant, 2 copies of Desires, with triple copies of Shadal Fusion, triple copies of Super Polymerization. Then we have 2 Punishment and 1 Rush Shadal Incarnation. I do want to note that on Neuron itself, it was listed as 2 punishments. I'm pretty sure that one of these is supposed to be a schism, though. Like, I'm almost 100% sure that one of these punishments is supposed to be a schism. So keep that in mind if you're building this, that you might want to consider, like I said, dropping one of these for that schism, because I'm not sure if that was a correct listing on the person that made this and put this up on Neuron. So keep that in mind. We have 1 copy of Secure Garden, 1 Almirage, 1 Gravity Controller, 1 Starving Venom, 1 Ragin, 2 copies of Makaba, 1 Algoides, 1 Anintis, 2 copies of Winda, 2 Construct, and 2 copies of App Cologne. Then we have 2 copies of Lancia, triple copies of Godarla, triple copies of Nibiru, triple copies of Cosmic Cyclone, triple copies of Dark Royal No More, and 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster, wrapping up the chunk of deck list that I have. And I want to say thank you to everybody that has shared this information. I'm pretty sure there will be a lot more coming out as tomorrow goes. So without further ado, smash your ever-loving crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more excellent content. And I'll see your beautiful faces back here later on the day for some more cool, awesome content. Peace out, guys. Thank you, patrons, for making the ride never truly end. Without you guys' support, well, I would probably be doing Truffle Shuffle videos for a living. Guys, please check out VanCool40 for all of your Cardfight Vanguard content brought to you by MCool40. And if you are looking to pick up singles, check out mcoolgames.com for your trading card game needs. Thanks for watching, everybody.